Zebec, the pirate who challenged the devil himself. Roger, the man who conquered the seas and became the king of the pirates. These weren't just pirates, they were forces of nature who reshaped entire eras and bent the world to their will. Zebec's shadow loomed so large that the world government buried his existence from history and still couldn't erase him. Roger's final words ignited an era that's still burning. Two kings, one throne, only one answer. What's good everyone, Sunman here. Today we're settling the debate about who would actually win. Quick heads up, this entire breakdown is built on manga material. If you're anime only, this is your warning. Spoilers ahead. Let's start with the forgotten monster himself. In his very first appearance, Zebec is known for taking down an admiral. That's his introduction. Not a feat he builds toward, the floor he starts on. He stormed the Holy Land, captured kings, and stared down Emu without flinching. Then, while wounded and on the run, he clashed with Harald, the king of Elbaf, a giant who sat on the throne of the strongest nation in the world. And then there's God Valley, the moment that changed fate itself. At God Valley, Zebec fled from the Holy Knights and the Domi Reversi demons while shielding his wife and child, and after letting them go, he turned around and erased the people chasing him in a single attack. By the end, he was the biggest contributor in the strike against Emu, before being turned into a Domi Reversi demon. That's not a pirate, that's a natural disaster with a name. Goldie Roger. At first he wasn't as active as Zebec, but make no mistake, he had to push past his limits more than once. At God Valley, Roger fought Whitebeard. Not just any Whitebeard, Whitebeard with the Gura Gura no Mi already in hand, a fruit said to be capable of destroying the world itself. Roger held him off so the bigger play could happen. He joined Rox in the strike against Emu, and when Rox turned, when he became a Domi Reversi demon, Roger and Garb took him down together. To do it, Roger had to push his haki to absolute critical mass. 2 years later, he was even stronger. He conquered the Grand Line, he found Laugh Tale, he became the king of the pirates, the only man in history to earn that title. So who wins? Let's start with the God Valley version of Roger. Honestly, I don't think you can make a case for Roger. Zebec was physically broken, mentally compromised, and still outperformed Roger against Emu. And remember, this era wasn't called the Roger era, it was the Rox era. Even with Roger active and rising, the world knew whose name belonged to the throne. God Valley Roger loses. But what about Prime Roger, the man who created his own era after God Valley? Funny thing, this actually is the strongest version of Roger we ever see, even though he was already dying from his disease. And here's where the debate gets interesting. Feats wise, Zebec is still ahead, but there's a real case for Roger now. Zebec and Harald were roughly equals at God Valley. Maybe Zebec edges him out, fine. Later on, Loki fights a stronger Harald than the one Zebec faced. The fight is contentious. Harald let his guard down to let Loki land the finish, but even if you argue Harald with Emu's Covenant is stronger than Loki, here's what matters. Harald himself believed Loki, with just the Devil Fruit, without even Ragnar, could beat him. However you read those scenes, the intent is clear. Loki rivals a version of Harald who's at minimum on par with Zebec, and potentially far above if you take it as Covenant Harald. Why does this matter? Because the Loki and Harald events happen during the time Whitebeard sits on the top of the world as the strongest man alive. That means Whitebeard scales above characters who are at least Rox tier. And now Roger's scaling gets very interesting. Roger was Whitebeard's greatest rival. They had countless intense duels. The question is, how close was this rivalry really? Throughout early One Piece, Oda consistently treats Roger, Garp and Whitebeard as the pinnacle. Three equals at the top of the world. They respected each other's strength. Whitebeard was framed as a pirate king equal in everything but title, and the strongest piece of evidence, post-time skip Whitebeard fought Roger for 3 full days and neither could finish the other. If Roger and Whitebeard are equals and Whitebeard scales above Rock's tier through the Harald chain, Prime Roger walks above Zebec. That's the case, and it's a good one. But here's where it falls apart for me personally. Whitebeard isn't called the strongest man in the world as a nickname, it's literal. He's stronger than Roger, he's stronger than God. The whole point of being the strongest is that nobody beats you regularly. So no matter how respected the 3 of them are, in raw power terms they're not equals. Whitebeard sits above. But they're rivals. Sure. So what? Zoro and Mihawk are technically rivals. Luffy, Law and Kid are rivals, and unlike Roger and Whitebeard, those 3 are actually equals in terms of bounty. Buggy and Shanks are rivals. Being rivals doesn't mean being equal. Garp and Chenjiao were rivals, and the moment we saw their final clash, Garp demolished him. Let me put it in different terms. End of Dragon Ball Super. Goku and Vegeta are rivals, right? You'd probably call them equals. So who wins? Goku with blue Kaioken times 20 or Vegeta with just blue? Goku stomps. It's not even a fight. Sorry Vegeta fans. That's how I view Roger and Whitebeard. I'm not saying the gap is a 20 times factor, but if Whitebeard can withstand Roger's haki with his own, I do not want to see the version of Whitebeard that's actually going for the finish. So where does that leave us? It comes down to one question: how close was Roger's rivalry with Whitebeard really? I don't think it was close, or at least not close enough. Here's my honest take. Back in the day, Oda wrote Roger as the pinnacle of strength, the ceiling, but as the story has gone on, that's quietly shifted. We went from characters are strong because they're comparable to Roger, to Roger is strong because he became Pirate King in such a stacked era, to top tiers like Roger getting eclipsed by genuine god tiers like Emu. Rogers is the king of the pirates. He always will be. But strength and title aren't the same thing. Even as Pirate King, Roger loses to Zebec. 2 kings, 1 throne. The throne goes to the man who challenged the devil.